It's been a long day. God damn. So for today, we're gonna watch some random videos, and also later. Wait, hold on. Let me put later on. I can play some Elden Ring later. So further ado, let's jump in. Okay. Wonder what videos to watch today. Hmm. We got Angry Joe's new video right here. Wait, type in Elden Ring. Any new stuff? Not really. Ooh, the two most powerful boss weapon tier lists. Let's watch that.
Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming Videos. My name is Holo, and today we have a unique and unusual idea never seen before on YouTube or any live stream. It's a tier list! Actually, we've never done one
So
on Rage
original.
Gaming, and it's something I've only ever done once on like one live stream on a totally different topic, and I must admit that it's quite fun. And the obvious topic, the one that we picked, was the boss weapons, the remembrance weapons.
Oh yeah.
There's 17 of them total in the game. Some of them are really good, some of them are absolutely terrible.
I really like Radon's sword. At first I didn't know it was you can double wield this it took me like 5 minutes to even do this stuff. I do stuff. It's like two-handed weapon, and then this like second sword just came out of nowhere. Like, what the hell, man? That's so unreal. But anyways, move on.
And there's quite a few that fall in the middle in unique and interesting situations. So we thought it'd make for a fun topic to go through, so we're going to do it. Okay, I welcome you to our tier list. Something I do want to quickly say before we get into it.
Before that, let's see how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. At least 28 boss remembrances. Yeah, definitely includes the incantations. But let's see what he has to say.
Is items, ashes of wars, and say incantations like this one. They are showing here. I'm not going to be rating those. This is a weapons video. We're talking about the weapons, the 17. So let's just crack in with the beginning. From bottom to top, we have F. So these are the weapons that I am offended by, essentially. Let's start with the flail. This is, of course, the Bastard Stars. This is from the Remembrance of the Natural Born, the optional Remembrance boss. And this weapon is a very confusing one because, yeah, Estelle has two weapons. We have this flail, and we have the curved sword, the wing of Estelle. So, to cut to the chase,
Hold on, let me see.
flail, and we have the curved sword, the wing of Estelle.
The Wing of Estelle. Carmen's Strength 7, Dex 17, Intellect 20. For some reason it scales with... Wait. I wonder if it scales to strength or... Kind of weird one. Very weird.
So, to cut to the chase with this weapon, it is a flail because flails are not very good, and as far as this
Flail.
goes, statistically, it's just not that strong. It looks kind of neat, though. I do like the design of it, and it has a really cool and fairly effective Ash of War that I do like. But yeah, I'm not going to mess around on this. This weapon is irrelevant because of the Wing of Estelle. They are basically the same weapon, except for the Wing of Estelle has a much better, more effective...
Wait. You see the animation?
Well, they are basically the same.
Like this effector, very similar to like a sleeping effect. I think Saint Trina's sword has a sleeping effect similar to this one. It's like short range, like in a cone area. It's very interesting. Didn't know that one.
Weapon, except for the Wing of Estelle has a much better, more effective moveset, better statistically, and of course it has the same Ash of War that goes off faster, and it's got a unique R2. The Wing of Estelle is just straight up better than this weapon, so there's really no reason to use it other than I like the way it looks and I like flails, which by the way aren't very good in Elden Ring. Next up for F, as I said there's only two. It's the Axe of Godfrey, which really bothers me, and I admit that this is a personal salty one for me.
I didn't know that was like I was thinking of. I never used this weapon before, so I thought about if I wanted to use like an axe wielding build, like would use this one, but I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know.
Me. I'm particularly offended by this weapon because it's literally Godfrey's axe, dude. I know it's broken, but the way he uses it in the fight where you fight him, can I not use it like that? For some reason, we get a hammer moveset on an axe. It really bothers me. Not to mention, statistically, this thing is terrible. It has really bad scaling for some reason, and even when buffed up by its own Warcry buff and, say, other buffs, its AR is just not that good. It's just too slow as a weapon. It's too clunky. When you do that Ash of War and get the unique R2, which is sure interesting, and you get the extra AR, the attack is so slow. The Ash of War Slam is so much better than the actual weapon art that we have on this weapon. I've tried to make this work pre-patch and post-patch in both PvE and PvP, and it just feels bad. While, yeah, any weapon can work in this game, you can play anything at like soul level 1 and beat the entire game because you're a gaming god, it will be a challenge because this weapon is not that good, and I wish it was better, and it deserves an axe moveset, not a hammers one. Maybe you'd rate it higher, like a D or a C, but either way, this is my F. Now we get into D, where we're talking about weapons that I think are weak and hopefully will be improved in the future, but I don't think they're like unplayable either. Let's start with, yes, another axe. This is Godric's axe, the fanboy version of Godfrey's axe, which is so sadly better than the actual axe.
You know what? Like, that probably like the first time that like Godric surpassed Godfrey in some manner. Even with it looks nice. I don't know if it's like that. Never mind that.
Of Godfrey's axe, which is so sadly better than the actual axe. So Godric's axe here has a way better moveset. It's an axe moveset, and it also has a unique R2 combo, which looks and feels cool. Its Ash of War, I command the kneel, is really cool, and also was buffed in the patch where we have faster cast.
Oh, there's a buff for that. Increased cast speed, including follow-up input. Added a window to roll during the attack to cancel the animation.
Times, and it's one of the few Ashes of War that you can cancel out of in the patch, which is awesome. I want all Ashes of War to be able to do that. It scales terribly though. Its AR therefore is bad.
Let's see, scale. Oh, see. Okay. I wonder if scaling is so bad. Let me see. Physical, magic, fire, lightning, holy. Okay.
His moveset is cool and all for an axe moveset, but it's just weak. The output's bad. Even that Ash of War. Single target is terrible. AoE.
For a charge heavy attack. 1250? Not bad. Not
It's
bad.
fine. There's way better Ashes of War and weapon arts for AoE than this.
Mhm.
Ultimately, you can use this if you like it, but yeah, there's just so many better options. And there's actually only other one weapon I'm going to put in D category, like F, and that is this one. This is the Winged Great Horn. This, of course, comes from the Regal Ancestor, and it's an interesting one because it's another axe. You might be sensing a theme here, but yeah, I think axes are fairly weak in Elden Ring, and I would love to see them, say, be specifically target like colossal weapons were. Get some buffs. His moveset is fine. The axe moveset, its damage, its stats, low, weak, low AR. Essentially, the entire value of this weapon comes from its Ash of War, which is pretty good. You use it and place down a cloud that enemies will walk into, and then that will debuff them, reducing their resistances, meaning they take more damage. Therefore, it is entirely possible for you to swap to this weapon.
I really wonder how much the resistance negation would be, though. What if I can check real quick? Go to here. Let's go to here. Elden Ring. What's the name exactly? Let me just do this one. Soul. I can spell soul. Soul Strifer. Stifler. Let's see. The wiki. FP cost is 12. Lasts for minus 10 seconds, huh? Oh, no. That's for debuff lasts 20 seconds. Either after the area effect ends or the target exits the zone. Let's see, defense are lowered by 15%. Both physical and magical elemental. Okay. Decent. But does not stack with the Shriek of Milos, which is ever applied to second will be used. It does stack with frost dropping defenses by 35 to 40%. Interesting. Can be used on a sleeping enemy without waking them up. That's a good strat to learn. However, if not silent, will draw enemy attention if you're just sticking behind them. Okay. I should really ferret this one. Alright, let's go back.
Put the Ash of War down to debuff an enemy to make them take more damage, and then swap to a better weapon with a better moveset, with better AR, and benefit from that debuff. There are other weapons in this game where you swap to it, use the Ash of War, and swap off in many cases. It's just this is obviously a bigger axe, so it's fairly weighty. You'll need some endurance to do that. Overall, though, I do think it's kind of offensively weak, and it definitely deserves, like the other axes,
the second one.
Some way. Now we're moving into the C category. Let's begin with Giant's Red Braid. Straight into C, this one is a Fiery Faith Whip, and I quite like it. I do think it's an underrated weapon. I enjoy using this. I've used it in PvE, I've used it in PvP. I love whips. I think they're great. I think their moveset's awesome. The range they have is awesome. This one has a really slick Ash of War where you set it on fire with a really satisfying like click sound. And yeah, you do this swing around and do some fire damage.
That's cool.
It's really nice AoE range. Certainly can catch people out in PvP with that and make it work against enemies that are weak to fire in PvE.
That's pretty cool. So the whip does basically 2,000 damage.
The reason this is a C-class weapon and not higher, though, despite...
Okay.
Work against enemies that are weak to fire in PvE. The reason this is a C-class weapon and not higher...
Oh damn, almost close to 4,000. It's not bad at all.
Higher, though, despite what I've just said, is the fact that it's outclassed by the Bleed Whips. Either of the Bleed Whips are just going to do so much better because, I don't know if you know this, but Bleed's kind of strong in Elden Ring. In PvP, you can absolutely
Oh yeah, look at see the animation.
Because, I don't know if you know this, but Bleed's kind of strong in Elden Ring. In PvP...
Yeah, look at that. just having a bleed proccing. It's
You can absolutely decimate
insane.
people with bleed. Having a long-ranged option and great trading and roll catching, well, that's going to be good, isn't it? You can really benefit from the range and the moveset and really outplay people with these things. And yeah, I've used this whip and I think it's fun. I think it's good. But it's hard to put it higher than a C when it's so outclassed by other whips. Let's move on to a surprising one. I was really thinking about putting this a D, but it did see some buffs in the last patch. We're talking about, of course, the Grafted Dragon. This is also from Godric. It's a very poor scaling fist weapon, and that means that it's got tiny range on its attacks and low damage. What really is special about this weapon is its Ash of War, which is very cool. You do that shot up into the sky, dealing big damage, and all that fire AoE, which puts fire...
How much damage?
...on the ground, which
2,528. Interesting.
deals damage over time. As I said earlier,
Wait.
there are many enemies in this game that are super weak to fire, making this weapon kind of relevant in certain situations. In PvP, people have pulled this out on me and just blasted it in the sky. Can't say it ever even did any damage to me, but I could see it catching someone, somewhere, somehow. And it is neat. AoE scenarios, being right under a boss or a big enemy and blasting up into their crotch. It can be funny.
Doo doo doo. Yeah?
Did you put this?
Hmm?
Did you put it?
Oh no, Angelic.
Not good. It's not our time. I don't want to get something to your quick meltdown, you know?
Oh yeah.
I know you're playing. Take it out. You want to take it out?
Yeah, I can pick it out.
It's not our house. I know you want privacy. You want day.
Oh boy. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm definitely sharing a household with a lot of people.
And fist weapons are fun, as much as they are a challenge to use. So I like this weapon, and this is about as high as I can rate it, a C. Last up for C then is, of course, the Great Bow. This is the Lion Great Bow, this is Radan's bow. This bow's a weird one. Because it's a great bow, that means it's got great range and great damage, but it's very slow and very static. This specific great bow comes with the Radan Ash of War, which is very powerful. It does a lot of damage on a target that's not moving around, and if you've got a big target like a dragon or a giant, you can absolutely devastate with that. There is an Ash of War we can put on other bows that does less damage but works similar, but there is the unique effect of using Radan's actual arrows, the great arrows, to do way more damage that works perfectly with this bow, obviously. So yeah, it feels really good in open world, but to try to pull this out in PvP or PvE where you're up close, like in most boss fights, it's going to be a real challenge. Much more viable in open world invasions where you can ambush people and attack them from far away. One of the best options for that, but I can't put it any higher than C because of that. All right, we're already at B. Let's start with Morgoth's Cursed Sword. I made a video where I talked about this post-patch and how I think it is a lot better, maybe a little bit underrated, even though it is a curved greatsword moveset, which I really like. Even though it's been buffed with the Ash of War coming out quicker now, I still feel like it maybe is a little too slow, or more specifically, the damage feels a little lower than I'd like. You could work this into power stance, maybe run 2 of them. You could use this with like sword and shield, and it's always going to be good because it's got bleed on it, scaling arcane weapon, and a cool Ash of War. But I don't know, man. Using this even post-patch in PvP, I had mixed results. It felt good and I enjoyed using it and I wanted to use it more, but that doesn't mean it's a strong weapon. Compared to the C weapons, it's definitely better though, so I feel like it should be in B. All it really needs is a bit more damage, and then it would be great. We compare it to, say, the Bloodhound's Fang curved sword, and that is just stronger. Like, you can buff that with fire, and then buff up the fire damage. The Ash of War just does way more damage. So yeah, for me, this is a B, but I do like the weapon. Next up then, we have the Crag Blade. This is the Dragon King's Crag Blade. It's a rare weapon type, the Heavy Pierce. We can use this from behind a shield and do some poking, go two-hand and use it full out. I've only ever seen this actually a couple times though, in PvP, maybe once or twice, and I've played a fair amount. Statistically, it's alright. It's a dex scaling weapon. It's a lightning weapon as well, so we can easily buff this up in various ways and get some seriously high damage with it. Way more than Morgoth, that's for sure. So it's got a simplistic moveset that's a little bit repetitive. It's got really good damage when you buff it up and scale it in the correct way. And then it's got that really cool Ash of War where you become that lightning cloud and slam on an enemy. And you can actually hold that cloud to last longer longer in it. And while you're in it, you have insane poise. You still take damage, but you will not be interrupted by pretty much anything, and that is really cool. So if you are into thrusting weapons, this is actually a solid pick. But I also don't believe this is like super meta or like the best pick. You should be using this. So it feels good to me in a B. All right, last up for our B rating then. Again,
Yeah, it's not a bad weapon to use on PvP. It's not bad at all.
only 3 here. This is Marika's hammer, which I love, personally really like, and wish I could make it work better.
I have used this weapon before. I don't know. I'll put in B tier. It's acceptable. Like the wind-up time for the Ash of War. It's not the favorite, but I think it's probably good against PvE instead of PvP, maybe. Who knows?
In PvP. This is a hammer, so in power stance, super fun to use, but also great if you just one-hand it and then put up a shield. With all the different parries that are in the game now, we recently talked about, or like the counter attack, sword and board style of play is really fun, and with a hammer, you're able to break people's posture
Yeah, it's definitely it.
super well. The Ash of War was buffed in the recent patch to come out quicker, and it's literally that radon slam that you see in the fight, and now it comes out even quicker. Big range, big damage, very fun to use. If you are a fan of hammers, this is like one of the best, if not the best option, and it's a great faith weapon. While it doesn't have insane AR, there are ways to make it much better because it's a faith weapon, and it can work in a lot of different builds. So I really like this one. It's close to greatness.
So if I can find ways to buff Radigan's, America's hammer, or Radigan's hammer, I don't know. I'll probably use it in my faith build later on. Who knows?
But it's not quite there. Therefore, for me, that's a B. All right, we are moving into the last bit here. We've got the A and the S's. Let's jump in with A to begin with the Melania weapon. This is the Hand of Melania.
Hands down one of the best swords in the game. Because of that Ash of War, you don't know how many times I like died to Melania so many times.
Now, you might think this is an incredible weapon, but let me explain. Statistically, it is worse than your base katanas in either way. Take a bleed katana. It's just not as good. You can't make this nearly as bleed efficient. It's not going to scale in that way, so it's just not a good bleed weapon. Then we compare it as a katana in terms of dex. It has worse dex scaling than a keen katana, and say with like the washing poles, it's the same range but less damage. So unfortunately, this weapon does literally get outclassed by other weapons for the 2 sides of play you might consider this for. However, it does have the incredible benefit of the Ash of War, that dance, that one move that she does to you that just makes you cry, and that works incredibly in PvE, whether we're talking AoE scenario or against the boss. You get this thing off, you absolutely destroying the boss's health.
Insane.
It works in unison with
Totally
those consecutive attack buffs, whether that's from your flask, the Wondrous Physic, or say, talismans. It's a very fun weapon to use. It looks really cool, and it's effective when you can actually get it to work. As a katana, it's great, but just not as good as the others. Next up then, another final boss weapon. This is of course the Sacred Relic Sword that comes
I tried the wrong one. Oh, that's funny.
from the Elden Beast, and it's actually using the weapon. It's just a good weapon. Its stats are good, it's fun to use, it looks really cool, great range, great moveset, works in so many different faith builds, and it's got the iconic Ash of War, that huge rune arc that just spreads and cleaves wider and wider and wider. We all know it from rune farming, obviously, but it's great in general.
Yeah, I definitely use it for rune farming at the end game.
Gameplay, this weapon, and because it does great base damage, it just works. In PvP, to be honest, I've really tried to make this Ash of War work and actually land, but everyone and their mother seems to be able to roll through it because, it is pretty damn obvious, even if it was buffed, and the speed at which you get in it and out of it is better now. I love this weapon for PvE, but I do not love this weapon for PvP because of that. As much as its moveset is sound and its stats are sound, that Ash of War, it just doesn't really work in PvP, so it's an A rating for me. Next up, colossal weapon time. It is, of course, Radahn's Duo.
Really, it's an A tier? Interesting.
blades. The Star Scourge great swords are awesome. Super fun to use. And strange because you have to use light attacks to use both of them instead of the normal L1. Statistically, these are great. You've got physical and magical. In many ways, we can buff that up and really pump out some AR, doing big damage with these slow, heavy-hitting weapons. It all really comes down to the Ash of
Like
War,
animation when he
which
does
is both awesome,
spin with that.
incredible, so fun, and also terrible and so annoying. It's because it doesn't really get the hyper armor that you really hope for with something so impactful. Slamming down the attack, the gravity effects, the big explosion, and the big damage that comes from it. In single target or AoE, that is incredible when you can get it off. But god does it feel bad to have this interrupted. In PvP, am actually able to get it off. I either use the first half to catch people out in a trade and then they avoid the explosion, or I catch them with the explosion because the explosion radius is bigger than they expect. I have a really good time using these in all scenarios, but they do not feel S grade, best grade to me. They feel close though. Speaking of colossal weapons, we have one more for the A grade here. Malekith's Black Blade, a colossal sword that I really like, and I think
Really? On A? Is it like, does it have an actual ward that reduces the percentage of enemy's health or something?
it's only got better with a recent patch. Obviously, it does more damage, its attack speed is better. When you're two-handing a weapon, it's just stronger now, and that is great to see. But another effect of this weapon is Destined Death, a super rare effect where if you deal damage with Destined Death to an enemy, its health bar is reduced by 10%, 10%. Which is big. You also deal damage over time and the actual damage of the hit. That's impressive. Then the Ash of War itself is a 3-hit par. So you got the actual swing up, you got the slam down, and you got the explosion. It's big damage, it's AoE damage, and it works in both PvE and PvP if you are smart about it. It also has armor on the Ash of War, which is something we can't say for Radan's weapons. So it's very likely to at least go off. If you time it right, you can do some big damage with that. And because it's a colossal sword, it has one of the best attacks in the game, the crouching poke. I really can't sing enough praise for this weapon in terms of how much I like it, but still, the AR, the actual statistic value of this weapon, I'm still not sure it's like S rating. There are still colossal swords out there that I would rather pick, like the Great Sword or the Godslayer's sword, that I would sooner use in terms of meta best possible option than this one. Definitely recommend you give it a go, especially this patch if you haven't. All right, let's begin with, out of the 3 that I'm going to bring into S rank, the weakest and worst one, but it's still S rank, so it's nuts. Mogwyn's Sacred Spear. I absolutely love this weapon. It's an incredible arcane weapon and one of the best options in the game because arcane is so stupidly good right now. We're talking about an arcane bleed weapon for an arcane caster. This is the top pick. It's got strong base damage and a wonderful moveset because this is a great spear. It has that running R2, which is just heaven for dealing with people in PvP. It's a spear, so it's got great range. And it comes out with those attacks quickly, and it looks cool as hell. Physical and fire, you can buff up in multiple ways. It's bleed and arcane, you can scale that. And it's like this weapon was made to be used with Swarm of Flies, the incantation, because it combos so well with the Ash of War. The ritual, the nihil, 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 you have this, and it was buffed in the recent patch. It goes out quicker. It's like the ultimate space creator in PvP. I just cast like Swarm of Flies, then cast the Ash of War, and then I watch them struggle with like which poison are they going to pick. And then in PvE, it's just so fun using the weapon for its base moveset, or of course spamming the Ash of War. It's strong, it's fun.
In lore, that when you fight Moog, when he pierces upwards, he just impales the outer god of blood. I think you could say just I think the Blood Mother. I think has a unique name that I can't remember right now.
It's effective, and after you use that Ash of War, your weapon gets buffed up. It's got like fire on it now, like extra fire damage. They just pack so much into this weapon, and I love it. So for those reasons, it's S grade for me. All right, now let's fix that mistake from earlier where I accidentally dragged a different weapon. This, of course, is going to be S rating, the Carrion Regal Scepter. It's a surprise to me that there's no like faith seals or anything, but sure, sorcery people, you get a boss weapon, and it's fortunately very good. Now I talked to Josh about this because I haven't properly played a sorcerer yet. That's more of Josh's thing, and he covers that for the channel. And he let me know that he believes this is the second best pure int staff in the game, and it's the 3rd best overall, making it obviously a really good pick. It's easy to see why, because this is an S scaling int staff, and it
Wow, that's insane. S tier staff. I think I did use 2 staffs that boost the invisibility magic or something. And then it boosts some other stuff, makes it more powerful than a single damage spell. I don't know.
It has bonuses, like the fact that when you use moon spells, you get bonus damage. It also comes with a pretty cool Ash of War where you spin it, which is not massively effective. You can certainly catch people out in PvP with that, but you should really just be casting spells because that's the benefit of this weapon. The only reason it's not like the best staff in the game is because it's got less damage than another that costs extra FP on spellcast. So it's really up to you. Like, do you want to conserve FP? Then this staff is actually the best option. But because FP isn't really like a problem end game or late game, a little bit of extra FP cost on your spells is worth the extra damage. Ultimately, this is a fantastic option, especially early game, because you can get it obviously from Renala. Essentially, this is what you should go get as soon as you can if you're playing a sorcerer, as you're opening up the game. But that leads me to our final weapon of the 17, and I think you guys probably know what it is. Rykard's weapon, the Blasphemous Blade, is a top tier weapon. This is a great sword that fits into so many builds. It's physical and fire damage. As I've said, we can buff that up insanely so we can get some serious AR on this thing. You can run
Really? HP Lovecraft? My goodness.
run it solo with a shield. You can power stance it with another great shield. You can run it in so many different builds just on your back because of the passive benefits that it provides. It's like so much stuff just juiced into this weapon. Its Ash of War is one of the best in the game. Super long range slam, sending out the fire damage, doing huge AoE damage from downtown. It's an AoE monster. It's a single target monster. In PvP, it's nuts. You can free aim it, catch people out on the roll, send it straight at them, trade with it. And then you've got the lifesteal just built into this thing. When you deal damage with it, you get health. Or when you're killing blow, when it's on your back, you get health. It synergizes with so many things, and I've slotted this into more builds than I'd like to say. It's almost hard not to use this thing. And it's funny because I also don't think this weapon's like OP or busted. I don't think it needs nerfing or anything like that. It's just so versatile and so fun to use, and I also love the design of it because, yeah, family. It's one of my favorite weapons in the game, so it's obviously one of the best boss picks for me. But there you have it. That's the list. What do you think? I imagine that we'll have some differences in placement, maybe, but I feel strongly about my options here. I'm really
It's a very decent tier list. I really like that though. Pretty cool.
happy with the list here. I did speak to a few people just to get some second opinions, and overall, I think we're agreed. But what did you think? A tier list video on Rage Gaming, our first one. I don't think we'll spam these out, but you know, there are a few topics we could do this for if this was entertaining or interesting. The easiest way to let us know is to just drop a like on the video, and maybe we'll come back for more. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the
Insane. Very insane. And they were trying out most of the boss weapons in Elden Ring. Definitely try them out. Alright.